Hey guys, what's going on? Today I want to take a look at the Constitution, and we're going to start. We're kind of in the midst of our DBQ about the Articles of Confederation, but what's important for us to kind of remember and to look at is as we're working on this, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of help your little DBQ out there. So I want to make sure that you guys have that ready to go and that you guys are set and understanding exactly what we're going to do. So our goal today is to identify strengths and weaknesses of the Articles, as well as understand what the Great Compromise was at the Constitutional Convention of 1787. So first and foremost, missing work, get it into me. Peer evaluations, we bump that back to Wednesday. You better be ready. 3, drafts for Friday. That's when I want to be able to take a look at your peer evaluated DBQs. And then last but not least, come see me at lunch for quiz retakes. All right. Articles of Confederation. First and foremost, the major accomplishments, thing that it was known for. It was the government in place when we defeated Great Britain and established our nation and the peace with Great Britain. That is a positive, right? It worked. It worked when everyone had a common goal. And that's the really important part for us to remember, is if the common goal is gone, the Articles of Confederation no longer worked. So while we saw the Articles of Confederation work in the very beginning of our country, by 1787, they no longer worked because the common goal was gone. North Carolina wanted something different than Maryland. Maryland wanted something different than New York. And because of these differences, what we saw that this government was no longer effective. Effective with one goal in mind. It works. All right, when we have more than one goal, it doesn't work anymore. All right, the Articles of Confederation allowed for our country to initially grow and start to succeed. Right, we saw the successful start to a nation. We defeated, we made peace, we started. Right, the Articles of Confederation will be brought into question during Shays' Rebellion, but after that, we start to kind of see, it's there. We started. That's the most important part. We got things started. Because we got things started, what we wanted to make sure that we did is we wanted to make sure that we saw exactly what we wanted to see out of that. We no longer was meeting it. You remember that document where Washington was writing to Madison and he kind of said, we're halfway there, or, Washington writing to John Jay, that is, that basically it's kind of, we're getting there, but our government's still broken. We have all of these things, including a crisis coming. Right? The one awesome thing that it did is it allowed states that were added to the Union later to have the same rights. So we kept that. One thing that was kept out of that is that we allowed states like Ohio and Indiana and Michigan to join the United States without having to really kind of focus on what kind of benefit or drawback there is to it. They had the same rights. And we offered that first to Canada, and the Articles of Confederation established the Northwest Territory. And because it established that, what we saw all of a sudden that we were able to start to make those allowances happen for people, and it was something that was possible for us to do. Now on to the weaknesses, right? There are some weaknesses. It was nearly impossible to change. You needed 13 out of 13 votes to change the Articles, right? But again, everybody had different agendas, right? Part of the reason why it was broken is that everybody had different agendas. So no longer did North Carolina, South Carolina, and New York want to fight and defeat Great Britain. Now all of a sudden, North Carolina wanted to make sure that they had, ample ways to transport goods across the ocean to the largest markets in the world at that time. Whereas New York was more worried about the manufacturers up in New York getting their goods to market in the United States and not have to worry about the cheaper goods coming from overseas. We saw a lack of government power, right? So government had, authority, but it didn't necessarily have power to carry out that authority. We also saw a lack of authority without the power to really enforce it. So we saw that taking place and starting to happen. Last but not least, what we saw was little ability to accomplish the basic functions of government, such as provide goods and services and provide national protection. Right? We also couldn't make or enforce laws. So all 4 purposes of government were not met by the Articles of Confederation. Again, the Articles worked wonderfully when we had a common goal of defeating Great Britain. From May 1787 to September 1787, we went and called a constitutional convention that met in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The purpose of the constitutional convention was to address the need for effective national government in the United States. we wanted to amend the Articles of Confederation. When they started to work on it, they realized that, no, we can't do that. There's no way. We're not going to be able to amend these. We're going to have to scrap these, and we're going to have to write something new. It's exactly what they did. And they started to kind of push that forward, and they started to see and realize that, whoa, this is going to have to be something entirely new. We're not going to be able to use the same things that we've been using. And that's what you started to see. So what we got out of it was we got the Constitution of the United States. But while we were working our way that way, what we saw was we saw some debates and some arguments along the way. Right? So one of the things is that we had two big plans. Right? We debated a lot of things, including how to count slaves for proportional representation, so forth and so on. But what it came down to was two big plans. We had the Virginia plan, sponsored by people of Virginia, and we had the New Jersey plan, sponsored by people of New Jersey. Key components of the Virginia plan included 3 branches of government: a legislative, judicial, and executive branch, a bicameral house, meaning 2 houses, so think bicycle, 2 wheels, bicameral, 2 houses. So what we saw was that the Virginia plan called for proportional representation. All right. Other powers that they included in the Virginia plan was to regulate interstate commerce, strike down bad laws, and use the armed forces to help enforce laws. All right, so it's all fine and dandy and things that we may have included today, but at the time it was pretty revolutionary. Next up, we see the key components of the New Jersey plan. The New Jersey plan also called for 3 branches of government. That's one thing that both plans agreed upon. We needed separation of power, and we needed 3 branches. The New Jersey plan called for a unicameral house with equal representation. So what we saw other powers levy taxes and import duties, regulate trade. State laws have to be less powerful than national laws. So all's fine and dandy, and we start to see that kind of really working. But if we have 2 plans going into it, only one plan's coming out. So what do you think is going to be? How are we going to pick one plan? Do we go with the Virginia plan? Do we go with the New Jersey plan? Or do we combine them? So hopefully you know that we combine them. And what we had the Great Compromise, which took the Virginia plan, took the New Jersey plan, and combined them into what was known as the Connecticut plan or the Great Compromise. Key components: kept the 3 branches of government, created a bicameral house where we blended the idea of representative proportional representation and equal representation. So we have a House of Representatives now, 435 members based on state population, and we have the Senate, which is 2 members per state, 50 states, 100 members. All right, we also created a presidency, part of the executive branch, right? And we decided that the president would be elected by something known as the Electoral College. Prior to 1912, we saw the senators being elected by state legislators, and we agreed that we would count slaves as 3/5 of a person for representational democracy. Right? Even though slaves didn't really have the opportunity to participate freely and openly in democracy, we still counted them. Right? That's kind of like a plea for the South. Is South population was smaller, the South non-slave population was smaller than the North. But what we saw that kind of take place. So what we see with this Constitutional Convention, out of it, we get the Great Compromise that sets up our Constitution. All right, tomorrow, peer evaluations. Thursday, we'll start looking at the different articles of the Confederation. All right, and that's kind of where we're going to leave off today. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and I will try my best to answer them. Thanks.